Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Yet another Saturday talk, and it's my turn this time. And usually, I give an introduction to the speakers, so it's a bit hard to do my own. I just thought I would say that I started as a beginner at the Manchester Centre in 1983. So I don't know where that puts me with regard to everything else. But like many of us, we just carried on and continued in our samatha tradition, and it's just grown and grown and evolved and so on. So I must say I'm very glad and grateful that I have this in my life, and that it's so enriching and so important, and it's a lifelong journey. So that's my background. So this talk I'm doing this morning I've called was it Developing Creativity Through Meditation? I thought about the title for some time because of a variety of things. I suppose the starting point of this particular title came when I noticed certain things that tended to happen on a week of strict practice. Some of you here will have been on weeks of strict practice, others never, or don't know what they're about, bit of a mystery. But obviously it's a lot of, focus on sitting practice, and a very in-depth focus on that. And it has its own sort of pattern to the week. It doesn't always go according to the formula, but there came a point in the week when the practice got a bit easier and a bit lighter, and I noticed that people started putting lots of flower decorations on the table and putting more on the shrine, and actually arranging apples in a certain order. And that was the starting point, because I felt that there was definitely a connection between meditation practice and creative impulses of some kind, but I didn't know quite what it was. And this talk is really exploring that connection and that possibility. Of course, on a strict practice, because you're so focused on your inner world and what's going, when your senses open out to the environment, especially if there's a lot of natural environment, the senses are more perceptive, they're brightened up. So obviously people do notice more about nature, and also they seem to see more meaning in things as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to my PowerPoint. Okay, so this is my tour. The first slide is where I saw this sort of parallel between the phases in a strict practice and some aspects of Dhamma. I put physical and emotional pain. I hope that doesn't put people off, but it is quite uncomfortable at first when you're sitting a lot, and you can get a bit fed up with it and a bit, challenged, let's say. And so there is a deliberate challenge and resistance, but with perseverance and determination and faith and resolve, that sort of lightens up and a sense of ease and relief comes. This is hopefully, it doesn't always happen like this. And if that continues, there is a sort of moment of quite joyous bliss. And that's if you're lucky, not always. And with that intensification, there's an openness of heart and of understanding. And it's a truly wonderful process. And if you're lucky, you get a sense of deeper meaning and wisdom and peace. And I tried to this is something I experienced and saw and knew, but the aspects of Dhamma that related to that could have fitted one of our lists of the Bojjhangas or some Abhidhamma list. Maybe Mark could work it out. But this is the way I put it, in that there has to be some sense of suffering and being ill at ease, but also applying and sustaining the attention, vitaka and vichara we call it, and then making a firm resolve of determination. It takes one through, it pushes you through, and applying mindfulness and concentration brings about this sort of energy and increased determination, and if you're lucky, the happiness, tranquilization, sukham pasadi, concentration and jhana. And it's around that time, I think, when creativity comes up. So that's my theory. So the practice was that these three images I'm showing you are ones that I took very early on, and to me they meant a lot. I thought it talked about, not talked, but it expressed the raindrop at the end of a leaf, a blade of grass rather, that was about to fall. And then this tree that I used a lot in some later work that I did, it seemed to speak to me, and so did these apples. That's a more recent one. Now I want to go back to me. So am I back with you? Can you see me? Yes, the screen share.
Yes, you can.
Yes, yeah, you can see me now. So those images seemed very powerful and meaningful at the time, but then when I looked at them later or showed them to other people, they didn't have the same impact at all. And so I was still left with the question whether there was a real link between the development of jhana in practice and mindfulness and creativity. So I kept on sort of working with this and exploring it. I was also aware that in samatha, in our tradition, there's a lot of instructions and explanations, and I wondered whether imagery would be helpful in expressing them, you know, almost like an illustrated guide. I know that Peter Harvey had once asked me if I had any images that might fit the, you know, the meditation instructions, because it might help to be another way of expressing them. And so now I'm going to, so the next few slides are some images, mainly my own, I think, but others I've gleaned from various classes that I took, where I encourage people to express in visual forms the stages of the practice. I did this with a group that did Kusina practice, which is focusing on a coloured sphere, and also another group which I use the 4 elements. And so we do a practice, and then afterwards people were encouraged to express it visually or in words, whatever, but this led to a collection of images which I'm just going to show and not comment on, and just let you look at them. And maybe you could have some comments after the talk. So I'm going to stop the share and come back to you. So I'm back with you again. So yeah, I think there is quite a lot of possibility there. It's not been fully developed. Maybe that's something for people to think about, whether it works or not. Sort of sometimes an image is better than words, but it may be too esoteric. I mean, but there is a lot of very interesting imagery in the Yoga Vichara work that we've been doing. So 2 things came out of this. The benefit of keeping a journal during a week, in which one could be encouraged to do visual representations. And there is a lot to be said for that, for the recollection of the practice. The process of reformulating it visually enables the meditator to sort of to recollect. But anyway, my journey went on a bit further than that, because I chose to do a degree in creative practice in my retirement, and I wanted to develop my own creativity. But in the process, if you do a degree of any kind in art, you can't just do it as a recreational hobby. You have to dig quite deep. And during the course of that degree, you know, I was guided to say what's most important to you, what drives you, what really matters, what is it that you want to express. You know, you have to go deep into yourself. And so this sort of made me come back to meditation practice as well. Trying to see the connection between meditation and you know, and creativity. And there was a couple of artists that were very influential to me. Oh, here's another one that I missed out before. I'm sorry, I have to go back a little bit. This is a very quick notation of a sort of visual representation of the 5 jhanas as were taught by Paul Dennison on the Yoga Vachara week, in which the first stage was the placing of the attention with the simile in the suttas and the material being the ringing of a bell. And the last 2 squares are how I was experiencing that just in visual form. This must have only taken a few minutes to do. So the second jhana is where the sustained attention is sustained and the attention ripples out. And the third is when sort of energy and piti and happiness arise. And again, that's followed through in just the imagery. And the fourth one is equanimity, which is symbolized by being enclosed in a white cloth. Right. Oh, and here are some more images. Sorry, I've gone a bit out of sync here. These are some attempts I did to express certain experiences, I suppose. This was one for joy and joy. That was equanimity. That was concentration. And that was piti, energy again. So those were some of my attempts in different forms to express some of those experiences. So this is the art of Hilma af Klint. She was a woman, Swedish, and Eastern esoteric movements, very immersed in them. And she tried to, well, I don't say tried, she was very productive in putting into imagery some of her ideas, perhaps. But and she believed in the different levels of consciousness and levels of being. But if you look at this, you can't necessarily make sense of it. It's just a form of expression. So she was very influential. I thought, yes, I'll keep on this journey of exploring creative expression, but rooted in some meditation tradition or a sort of an Eastern philosophy, if you like. And then my other favorite artist was Bill Viola, who's he does big installations and video artist. I mean, there's a lot I could say about him, and I realized I mustn't digress too much. But he claimed to be very influenced by Zen Buddhism in his work. And he was not afraid to sort of tackle, you know, big themes like rebirth and the transitory nature of life and the sort of coming from the form to the formless. Amazing sort of work that really inspired me. So this was all elements in the journey, if you like. I did actually meet Bill Viola himself at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and here's a little story. When I was taking inquiries to Samatha, so anyone who put info@samatha.com, it came to me, and there was an inquiry from the Yorkshire Sculpture Park if we could provide a meditation teacher to do some sessions to accompany Bill Viola's exhibition. And I thought, well, this was meant for me. So it ended up with myself and my friend Diane doing a couple of workshops for the general public called Meditation and Creativity. But we didn't meet him. It was like, he's American, you know, and he's an international artist. And at the time we met him, he was much smaller and more wizened than I'd seen. And he actually was he was unknown to us at the time, suffering from the early stages of dementia. But he did take hold of my hand, because I said, I'm so excited to meet you and I love your work and everything. And he more or less said, calm down. And he just took my hand and he said, go slowly. So I thought that was something interesting and good to remember. Go slowly, because a lot of his work is in very slow motion. Right. I'm going to carry on with the slides now. Let me see what's coming next. Oh, there's Deborah at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park at one of our sessions. And so again, the format was to sit in a circle. I instructed them in meditation, mindfulness of breathing, then invited the participants with a very careful transition to go to the tables and express what they felt they'd experienced in imagery. And I made a little film of this, which does include a number of images that I took from so I'm hoping this video now will play. Is it playing? I hope so.
Yes, it is.
Good. So this is about 3 minutes, I think, and I'm not going right to the very end. Right, I'm going to stop it there, just come back to you for a minute. So that they're quite interesting themselves, and there's lots of them, and I did quite a lot of sessions with the students as well at the university, offering them sort of a mindfulness session and then to do their own expression of it. And I had lots of images, but it seemed to me, well, but the big but was that what do these mean really? And are they interesting visually? And I had a deep discussion with my tutor, and he said, maybe you're trying to do the impossible, because, you know, meditation practice is meant to clear your mind and empty your mind and be non-cognitive, you know, and that these images only mean something to the person themselves, and they don't necessarily have, if you like, any relevance beyond that. So I had another go at working out, I had another go at sort of building up that connection between meditation and creativity, and thought I would try and express it again in another video in which I was using the sound more consciously. So I'm trying to use the sounds And as I'm actually in the process of doing the visual work, I'm actually doing a meditation, actually doing it, meditating while doing. I'm going to share screen again and move on. Oh, share. These are just some adverts I put out at uni to encourage students to come to some of the sessions to give you an idea. Learn some mindfulness techniques and unlock your creativity. I had to do it in some weird places. Now, this is the film that I ended up producing. I think it's 4 minutes. So I hope you can all see it, Mark. Can everyone see this?
Yes, I think it's on the screen now.
Okay. Well, I've no idea what you made of that actually, but I'd be glad to hear if you want to say anything about it later. And I think that brought me to a certain point where I didn't know whether I could go any further. And it kept in my mind how I might do something with this connection between meditation and creativity. And thought after my degree I could perhaps do some workshops and courses, but I haven't done anything until recently, when Nicola Breach and I took a week at Green Street in the midst of the COVID crisis. We'd been wanting to do it for a while, and Nicola herself is practicing artist and teacher, so was interested. So I thought the last 10 minutes of my talk I would present to you some of the images and things that came out of our week of meditation and creativity. As some of you know, I don't know, I couldn't see everybody who was here. When I've been on a course at Green Street in the last few times, I've written a poem at the end, which is summing up the week, but it does require sometimes a bit of audience participation, as you will see. So let me just get back to the screen, share. All right, so this picture Deborah Rake should recognize, because on a previous session, I've done several sessions at Green Street, she did some lovely pictures and I wondered if she remembered this one. So that was from a previous time. Now this, as I read the poem, I'm going to show you some of the images. So the poem is called Refugees from COVID-19. It was late summer in 2020 when the whole wide world was in pandemic aplenty. Self-isolation and social distance reigned supreme, and everything one touched had to be scrupulously clean. So some meditators decided to take a good chance and set off for Green Street without a second glance, with open hearts and friendly mind to explore a new world of a different kind. Meditation and creativity was the name of the game. Combining them together was their challenging aim. And the chorus, which we all say together, is, to Green Street we will go, it's been left empty and neglected. We'll set off now to be sure it's renewed and respected. They travelled along some winding roads, trusting that they would find their spiritual home. At the entrance stood a pillar of stone, of Welsh slate so strong and all alone, firmly placed in the ground so tight, with the Samatha symbol shining so bright. The path to the house was studded with stones, jagged and sharp beneath long grasses of old. The apple trees welcomed them with branches held down, heavy with fruit fallen all over the ground. The swallows flew over them with movement so fleet. The birds' song thrilled them with melodies so sweet. To Green Street we'll go, it's been left empty and neglected. We'll set off now to be sure it's renewed and respected. At first they found it hard to acclimatise because they had to always sanitise and sanitise. But with right thought and good intention, they began to let go of that kind of tension. One found the air element was his refuge place, on top of the land with its wide open space. Beneath his feet, tiny flowers were hidden. Like mini suns, they were shining, unbidden. Another took shelter in the old oak woods, where the ancient forest can alter your moods. On the earth beneath, thousands of oak leaves lay, symbols of many things, both near and far away. So when they were at home in the lovely Green Street, music resounded through the wind in the trees and echoed in the ripples of the ever-flowing streams. Gems seemed to sparkle in the dewy green grass, and lotuses bloomed in the ponds of crystal glass, while the sheep stood watching, knowing all that had passed. Another dwelt long in the water element, finding a fixed island in the ever-flowing torrent. Where does it begin and where does it end? This life stream which flows through a point in my hand. The texture of the earth. Another found solace in the sharp-rough stone and softed green mosses. The touch of these brought peace to the mind, brought the mind into peace, and they wished this moment would never cease. The more they looked, the more they found. In blades of grass, in large black slugs and fractal ferns, in spiky shrubs, in perfect apples and fragrant roses, as one opens, another closes. So when they were at home in the lovely green street, music resounded through the wind in the trees and echoed in the ripples of the ever-flowing streams. Gems seemed to sparkle in the dewy green grass, and lotuses bloomed in the ponds of crystal glass, while the deer stood watching, knowing all that has passed. All the time they practiced the samatha path with the counting and following and touching the breath. This gave them the freedom throughout the whole day to open their minds and their hearts in a creative way. Images and symbols, patterns and textures and pictures emerged from many different mixtures to inspire every member of this merry band who are only too happy to inhabit Green Street land. This group of 8 will always know, as if it were a city from long ago, the wonders of this lovely place, with its gates and trees and lotus lakes. So when they were at home in the lovely green street, music resounded through the wind in the trees and echoed in the ripples of the ever-flowing streams. Gems seemed to sparkle in the dewy green grass, and lotuses bloomed in the ponds of crystal glass, while the Buddha head stood watching there, knowing all that has passed. So let us wish each other well as we go, be thankful to the Buddha and all who follow. Let's face the world with loving kindness and hope that the virus never finds us. So to Green Street we've been, it had been empty and neglected. We leave it now for others to see it's renewed and well respected. Right, so I think that's all I can offer in terms of imagery and thoughts. Certainly you can see the connection between meditation and creativity, and thanks there to the people who are on the course, because I used their images, you know, and they probably, if they were watching, they probably recognized them. So I didn't mention, but perhaps I should have done, that we used the sutta of the Universal Monarch, the Mahasudassana Sutta, which is about a journey into meditation and using the senses very openly. People who know the sutta will understand that. And some of the imagery there was about the treasures that the monarch is given as a result of his good actions in previous lives. They're called the 7 treasures. So some of the images were related to recognizing those treasures in different forms in the landscape. So there's probably quite a few thoughts you've had while watching that, but I'd like to offer us a chance to do a short practice using some of the visualization that we used on the week in a very kind of minimal way. So I'd like to suggest that we'll sit for about 15 minutes and I'll do a little visualization with metta. So if you want to sit, I'm going to stay in my chair for this one rather than sit on the floor. And I'd just like to invite you all to adjust yourselves and sit in a comfortable way. And we'll practice using some of the aspects of creative visualization. So as always, it's good to make that transition from being aware of all the stimulus that we've just had and just settle down, feeling the uprightness of the back and the feet on the floor, and a sense of ease around the face and the heart area. Just be aware of your mental state and your emotional state, and feel nice and at ease and alert in your sitting posture. And just be aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. Be conscious of the breath. And before we go into the mindfulness of breathing, I'd like you to try and bring to mind a place that you associate with a good feeling, a place that you recognize as one where you've done some meditation practice of one kind or another, where the place itself seemed to be part of that practice and conducive to it. For those of us who've been fortunate to go to Green Street, we may find it there. But there are lots of other places, and it might be the very place you're in at this moment. But in your mind's eye, just bring that place fully into focus and open up your senses to it. Just look at what you can see in your immediate vicinity. Are you looking at the earth, a grass, or comfortable carpet, wooden floorboards? What are you looking at? What are you seated upon? Now raise your gaze upwards. What can you see in the far distance, the near and far distance? What sounds are in this place? Can you open up your ears to the sound? What effect does those sounds have on you? What is the air around you? Is it warm, cool, refreshing, just normal? How does that make you feel? Is there any smells you associate with this place? Can you allow your senses to open up to the smells, the sights, the sounds, the feeling of the air around? And let those elements affect you in a positive way. This is a good place and one that you've chosen. And now bring your attention to the breath, as if you're practicing in this chosen place. And be very conscious of the in-breath and the out-breath. And gently extend the length of the breath until you find the longest, most comfortable length. And as you breathe in, allow that to direct the feeling of loving kindness towards yourself, with the wish for your well-being and happiness and freedom from suffering and worry and ill will and any kind of trouble on the in-breath. And now on the out-breath, allow that feeling of loving kindness and the wish for the well-being and happiness of others to expand outwards and extend from yourself to all those you would wish for well-being and happiness at this present moment, those near and far. So on the out-breath, extend the feeling of metta outwards to others. May they be well and happy, free from suffering, free from trouble, free from anxiety, free from any kind of ill will. So we have possibly about half an hour to have a bit of discussion or questions. I think we need to be, yes, that's right. I think the way to do this is to somehow indicate by waving and then unmute yourself. And I think, Mark, if you can help me here to see who you can see, if there is Any
Yes.
questions? So Deborah is the first with a hand up, then Anne, okay, and then Roberta. Okay, Deborah, I hope you didn't mind me using your picture without your permission.
It was so lovely to. Oh no, thank you, Veronica. It was so lovely to be reminded of that day at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. It was
Yes.
5 years ago, wasn't it? I remember it was a very stormy day in December. So thank you so much for that. That was lovely.
Yeah, I think it was 2016, I think, 2016 it was.
Oh yeah, 4 years ago. Yeah, I thought it was.
In fact, you should have been the meditator because they wanted someone from Yorkshire. No, I'm doing this.
Well, I just wanted to share and see what you thought about this. I've recently got quite obsessed with art. And I bought myself a set of very beautiful coloured pencils, the best you can get. I was quite obsessive about getting the best ones. And what I've really noticed is that when I do some art, it seems to really improve the practice, because there's something about working with the form and the colour and the beauty of it. So it's kind of a little bit maybe the other way round. Instead of doing the practice and then doing art, what I found is doing the art then seems to really help the practice, because sort of gone into this world of without words, you know, of shape and colour. It seems to just really enhance the practice afterwards. Makes it
great. So it enhances the practice. What do you think, Deborah, is the connection? If you can put it into words, why does it benefit the meditation? What is it you're doing through your artwork that flows into the practice, do you think?
Well, I think it partly raises a lot of joy, because you know, it's just, they are just a delight to work with, these beautiful pencils and beautiful paper. And I'm doing some water lilies at the moment, and I think because you're not working with words, what I'm finding then is that what comes up in the practice, particularly in the settling stage, is a bit related to the art. Even some, you know, it seems to just shift something in the mind, you know, so that the things that come up in settling are a bit related to, it seems to just shift something. I think anything you do that you really enjoy, that's, you know, neutral or skillful, is just a very helpful thing for practice, isn't it? Because it's just
great. I do, and that's exactly what I want to hear, because it's still like, I know there's a connection, but sort of how to make it work, or perhaps be trusting in the process, just allowing it to happen. And maybe that concentration that you put into your artwork, you do get absorbed, or one can get very absorbed in it, so that you're, you know, there's no, you're so absorbed, like you say, obsessed, you know, kind of totally with it. Maybe that connects with that experience in the practice. But that's just analysis, isn't it? Interpretation. It's the experience itself.
I think maybe because you're paying very close attention, a bit in the same way that you have to do in Vitakka and Vichara. I think Paul Dennison's done quite a lot on this as well. Somebody was telling me recently how he used to get people to do some art when they were at Green Street, because it's around the quality of attention that you have to pay.
Yes, all right. Yes,
to really help the practice. So it kind of works both ways. I think the practice can lead into your art, but then your art can lead into the practice, can't it? So
that's great. That's great. Yes. So great to hear that. I'm glad that you do, you know, actually doing it, not just thinking about it. It's great. It's inspiring, that. Yes, yes. So we'll have to develop it further. We'll have to get to we have tried it a couple of times, haven't we? A few of us getting together in that way. Okay, so I'll move on then. I think Anne put her hand up, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Three things I want to say. First of all, when you showed those first images, and you thought that there may not be a connection, and then you went on to something else. Well, I think there were the sculpture park ones. There was one particularly with sort of that went in, I think there was yellow and sort of circles that you moved into and out of. And for me, and I'm not particularly visual, that really evoked the practice experience for me, so much so that I actually, you know, got absorbed into the image. So that certainly worked for me. And the second thing is, you, as I said, I'm not a visual artist at all. I deal with words more than images. But you did a weekend on art and meditation many years ago at Green Street, I don't know when, and you got us to go and draw or paint or
Forgotten
something.
it, then. I've forgotten it.
Remember, without looking or something, without looking at it or something peculiar. So I mean, I thought, well, I'll have a go, you know. And I actually came up with this anemone. Incredible.
Right, yeah.
An anemone, but
Yes.
whether I copied it or did it, or I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah.
And that it was like magic, really, because it just seemed to appear, and it didn't seem to come from me somehow. Certainly not from the head. It came from somewhere else. And then, of course, I used it quite a lot as a casino practice. And again, it was something very easily to, you know, go into, really. That was great. And the final thing is, I actually got one of your water lily images at an exhibition you did in Green Street. And I have that in the area I do my meditation. And I do look at it a lot because it's such a beautiful image. I think it's the beauty of it, and the peacefulness of it, and the fact of what water lilies do. I think that gives you all that before you start. You know, it's a bit like chanting or something, maybe a visual form of chanting. So yeah, very helpful.
I'm so glad you remembered that. As you spoke, I'd forgotten it, but you brought it back to life. I had forgotten, which is why I try to keep a record these days of things, you know, in a journal, because otherwise it's gone. And I do remember that, but if you hadn't spoken, I'd have forgotten. So it just shows, I suppose we haven't given a lot of attention to artwork, have we? We've done a lot with the chanting and the sound, but not using the image is in that way to enhance. So it's really good to hear that. So glad you remembered that.
I think Diana's been waiting to speak.
Let me unmute myself. Yes,
Diana, good to see you. Yeah.
I put up the little hand because I was waving my hand, but it didn't seem to be seen. So I'll just turn that off. Can I? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just a few things. I mean, Deborah, as you know, Veronica, I'm an art therapist. So, I mean, you know, to hear what you said, Deborah, it's absolutely right, because what the art does is to develop concentration and calm. So it's a wonderful way to sort of move into practice, you know, because you're stilling the mind, you're developing the concentration faculty. It's a very right brain activity, which we don't do enough of in our Western modern life. So you know, it's lovely to hear you getting so much from it, you know.
Yeah.
When you spoke about the beautiful colours and the beautiful paper, you know, that was a wonderful image.
It's interesting you say that, because when I didn't show them, I nearly did, I had another section which I decided not to include, was when I was at uni, you know, the students, I did lots of sessions, but they were one-off ones. They weren't always continuous, some were, but the students spoke an awful lot about the therapeutic, you know, benefit they got from, well, we did do it the other way round, you know, sitting first and then, but there's lots and lots they said that is really insightful. You know, it did enable them to understand something about themselves or just change their mood, and the therapeutic value was apparent then. But as you say, you expressed it in a much better in a way, you know, that what they gain from the artwork is, you know, it does touch on that concentration and that freeing away from anxiety and just making space to be all right. Yeah.
As you know, I work in a psychiatric hospital, you know, so the art is you know, particularly see the disturbed minds, and the art is very helpful to settle people and calm people down and bring back some happiness. You know? Well, so the other thing, I loved your pictures as well, Veronica, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed the presentation. The Green Street as well, beautiful photographs. Yes. But I also wanted to say, you know, it was interesting about Bill Viola, because as you know, I also love his work, his powerful work, and it was interesting to see a picture of him. I've not seen that before. And the very first time I ever saw an installation of his, it was so Buddhist, if you like. I mean, it was birth, there was his wife, giving birth on one side. There was his mother dying on her deathbed on the other side. This was living video installations, very big. And in the middle, there was the fetus in the womb. And that was incredibly powerful. So, you know, he is a very spiritual artist.
And yeah, I think so. I agree, Dhamma. Exactly. I mean, I wanted to do more on Bill Viola, but I didn't want to digress. Exactly, he faces up to, he's bold, you know, he sort of will face the process of birth, process of life, and they're both at the same time. So sometimes it's very in your face what he says, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's where if people are interested, it's worth looking up some of his work, you know. I think the first one I saw that turned me on to his work, a bit like that one, was, I haven't seen it in real life, only on a video, but it is a sort of cubicle one enters, and at the top is a sort of apparatus, but it forms a raindrop which gets bigger, and you see your image in the raindrop. It seems to pick up your image and put it onto this droplet of water that gets bigger, and then it falls, and then it gently hits the ground and just splashes away. I mean, there's lots of images like that, you know. It speaks for itself, but you go through it. So yeah, that's the Dhamma side, actually. I think there's both the experience, but there's a message as well. You know, there's the beauty of the senses, but also I think the aspect that we're talking about is also there's Dhamma there as well in some of these images, maybe in a more subtle way than Bill Viola. But I'm glad, yes, that you know about him, because you can see the connections. Okay, it's nice to see you. So, who's next?
I think Liz has been waiting very patiently, then Vasanta. So first, Liz. Yeah.
Oh, Vasanta.
And Vasanta after that.
Hello, Veronica.
Where are you? I can't see you yet. Oh, there's Liz, yes. Hi.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation, very interesting. And as someone who's very visually backward, I was hoping that perhaps that the idea of creativity might be taken a bit further out. But when you put music to the artwork, that's when my interest really started to grow. And it seemed to really make a difference. And I realized that obviously not everybody, connects in the way that you do and other people do to that form of creativity. Artwork. And I found the music actually more effect on her.
Just on its own.
On its own. And I was wondering whether the first one, I was glad you put up who was the music your actual produced. But the first one, was that Arbe Park?
Yes.
Or was it?
Yeah.
To me, seems to be the epitome of creativity.
Yeah, that's right.
In a musical expression.
Yeah.
So the two together were very powerful. And a bit like Anne was saying, you know, for me, the sort of upward stroke really didn't resonate. But anything that had sort of round or whirling or sun type things really resonated hugely. And one really kind of left out.
Yeah.
And I found myself identifying with that. So thank you. It was very interesting to see how you put the two, and I did enjoy your poem.
You like the poem? I know. A bit of, I hope it made you smile and laugh.
Last or two of the...
I hope the virus doesn't find us.
And lastly, I'd just like to say that I absolutely love Deborah, your painting of Green Street and the lovely round peachy.
That's right.
I wish you would make a print of it, and I'd be the first one to buy one. It's absolutely lovely.
That's good, Deborah. We'll have to publish. Okay, well, you're right. Yeah.
You know, so many different ways to be creative.
Yes.
I know when we're at Green Street, cooking is one of them, and there are all sorts of other things. Of objects that are placed around the house and that sort of thing.
Yes. That's right. Yeah. It is. I think there is the chance to be creative at Green Street in different ways. Like you say, everything is when you're in the right mood. You know, you've got to be in that. I suppose people are in the right mood at certain points. Not always, but you know, and that makes it happen. But the music is an important thing because I think that's why I ended up doing creative. I didn't do fine art. I like the idea of trying to find sound and image, but it can't be too rich a mix. The sound alone might be enough. But Max Richter, whose music was on the second video, he was very much creating music for meditation practice, really. And I think that, you know, there was one 8 hours long and it was called Sleep. But it was very popular. I think it was in the charts for a while. But I think you're right. Maybe sometimes it could be too much, but the sound alone, if you use it, it's what you bring to it, isn't it? I wonder if people who meditate actually kind of experience more or more depth or more intensity because they practice. I don't know, but it's possible. Okay, no, thank you, Liz. Okay.
Santa wants to say something. Santa?
In Zen Buddhism, I read in flower arrangement, they say you don't need to arrange the flowers. You put the flowers and they arrange themselves. It is in a book. And also, recently, what I have experienced is, in the last few days, I was writing the dedication to Peter. And I just typed it on the iPad, and it got arranged in paragraphs and in a pattern with spaces in between. It made a pattern out of that dedication. I was very impressed. I didn't try to do anything.
It just came naturally. Yeah.
And it was not line by line. It had a pattern. I wish I could show it. That happened. And I think, as you said in the beginning, it is a spontaneous arrangement. You don't have to do anything.
That's right.
You know. And what is the mechanism behind this? I do not know, whether it's the concentration or your energy that flows through this nature. Artistic.
I suppose when you start asking why and how, you could come up with answers. You just know something does happen, perhaps in the way it comes about it of its own accord, as if it has a I think artists sometimes say the painting or the book or the novel takes on a life of its own. So it's not yours. Maybe the thing is not to try to control that thing we do in the practice, to be with it, but not master, you know, not cling on to it, but trust and allow whatever you feel and think to come out. It is quite magical, but just in the simplest of things, as you say, Vasanti, you know, just the letters on a page, it can make its own form. Yeah.
And also I heard one, Peter Marshall, there was a book he has written. He wrote the sermons. That also spontaneously arranged. The sermons were arranged spontaneously in certain forms, and it was published in a book.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Well, it's just how you know it's spontaneous. Only you know.
Really?
Yeah.
the spirituality.
Spontaneity is an interesting thing, because when we did some of these sessions, the idea was to enable the meditator, if they were doing some, to, without too much coming in their minds between the experience and how they expressed it, was trying to hold on somehow to that, right, that sort of spontaneously express. It's like abstract expressionism might have been in that, but it is quite hard to be spontaneous sometimes. Sometimes you can't make yourself do it, somehow comes of its own accord. Okay.
Yes, one of my friends said that he has got to write something, he has got to think. I said, just don't think, just put the pen on the paper and just write whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And also I was reminded about the book called Conversation with God. Is written by Donald Walsh in 3 volumes. Again, God was telling him, just putting the words, there are 3 volumes of that book. Donald Walsh, Conversation with God. So all the what is written has come to him, making him write.
Yes, wow, good.
Yes.
My children are good at that as well. Thank you, Vasanti. Very interesting. I'll have a look at that. Thank you.
It's spontaneity.
Yeah. Is there anyone?
Marjorie.
Hello, Veronica. That was one. I really, really loved it. It was so good. I've always been terrified of putting paint on paper or pencil on paper and trying to make art. It's always terrified me. I just think I have no artistic potential at all. But recently I've just been thinking, buy yourself some beautiful crayons and some nice paper, just as Debbie was talking about. That was very inspiring, Deborah. And try it. And now, having listened to and watched your presentation, I'm definitely going to try putting crayon to paper and see what comes, either before or after a meditation practice. It's really inspired me to try. And I won't be showing you my results.
No, it's not. It's interesting what you say, Marjorie, because a lot of people won't come on these art and meditation weeks because they say they can't draw. So we often have to, and Nicola and I discussed this, that we said you do not need to be good at art to do this, but still it does inhibit a lot of people from having a go, and it's just overcoming that, and seeing it in a different light. It's not about whether you can draw at all, it's expressive, and I'm really glad actually, because this is something we can do now in our retirement. That's why I did my art degree. So it was fantastic, it took 6 years, to do it, and I had a fantastic time, although it was very hard at times. But, opening up that instead of keeping it in is good. And if it can relate to our practice, all the better, So see what happens.
Yes, thank you very much anyway. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, it was Nicola and Micah. So Nicola first, perhaps.
Nicola.
Hi.
Hello, Nicola. Did you recognise anything?
Also, really, really fantastic talk. And yes, it was just really lovely to see some of the images from our week. And I just wanted to just sort of back up a little bit about, that was interesting what Deborah said, but also a little bit how we spoke at the beginning of the week, and that nurturing aspect, and allowing those who'd come to the week just to find their creativity in a very natural way, and they were encouraged to sort of go off and just experience meditation and nature, and then from that to build up a meditation flow in a way that came from themselves and then onto the page. and sort of that progressed through the week, didn't it, Veronica?
Yeah, yeah.
So it sort of broke down those barriers of, you know, maybe when you were at school and you were told, or you weren't encouraged, or you were told that wasn't as good as another child. And I think what meditation can do. It can feed into a spontaneous creative act that you don't have to share with anybody, but as it happens, in the end, there is joy that arises from the work, and there is that possibility then of even sharing something that was quite private initially. So I think it feeds both ways, and then you can also meditate before you you can create to inform your meditation. And that deep root looking comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It worked very well the week, because I think you were very concerned to nurture the creativity. You know, you had a way of enabling them to feel really confident and enthusiastic. You know, it does take that intention to start with, you know, to kind of as you say, nurture that possibility. So yeah. The more I hear, actually, the more I realise that the potential is, yes, untapped. I mean, the simple things. There's not many artworks up in Manchester or in the centre at Green Street. A lot of the pictures up are rather been around for a long time. And there's a possibility for livening it up. And I certainly wouldn't mind being a conduit for that, of you know, ideas and images that we could reproduce. So hopefully this will start things off again in that direction.
Micah, do you still want to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Veronica, for your talk. I really enjoyed it, and I really feel like running off now to do some art, so that's really great. Yeah, I often actually, I've been thinking a bit about this like a little while ago, and I think that, like, for me, that meditation and art, that the process is very similar, in the sense that, I don't know, I feel like the jhana factors, the sequence, is also in play in art. You start with vitakka, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then vichara, like when I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, you know, whatever, to just kind of stick with it. So you have to kind of, I feel like I have to start and then stick with it. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to stick with it. But then after maybe, I don't know, after a while, there starts to be this energization, this piti, like it starts to kind of, I start to enjoy it, you know, the joy comes. And then sometimes it goes on to sense of sukha, I guess, like the contentment. And then sometimes it goes on to this sense of that the art is almost doing itself and that I just know what to do, but it takes a while to get there. And sometimes when I start painting, I want to like be at the end immediately. And that's just really frustrating. But if I keep in mind, like, oh, I just have to kind of start and stick with it, etc., and just kind of trust the process, that seems to work better. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. It reminds me, and I'm glad you said that, because I think when you're embarking on, if you set yourself a project, an art project or whatever, it could be, you know, straightforward drawing, painting, or it could be like in the video art. You go through these phases and you do need vitakka, vichara. And unless that, and then not get too excited about it too quickly, you know, sort of, and actually that whole process, and then being at one with it and so on. I hadn't quite seen it quite like that, but it does happen. A lot of frustration which you have to overcome, so in a way, you're right. The whole, all that, those aspects of, you know, mind and heart, if you like, are at play when we do other things as well. And particularly if you're embarking on some artistic project, perhaps, or creative project, could be music, or it could be performance or poetry or writing or anything, those same things. So that will help us be better, won't it? I suppose, you know, knowing that. So thank you. I think I think we're nearing the time.
Georgina just put her hand up.
Just quickly to kind of add to what Micah said, I'm actually an artist, so I did a art degree, finished last year in interactive arts, and that was kind of...
I was in interactive art. Was it at MMU, Georgina?
MMU.
Yeah, I did it there at MMU.
Oh, yeah. So you'll know that it's such a great...
Interactive arts, yes, yes.
Amazing course, and it's all about ideas rather than like a specific skill. So I've never like specialized, and I've always wondered why. I started meditating last year and coming to the centre in about January, and so for me, I've come from the opposite way, like coming from art and then finding meditation and being like, wow, they're so linked. And I've recently, it's been on my mind, and I'm like, is it just me trying to make a weird link between everything because that's what artists do? But coming to this talk, I'm like, no, it's so true. Everything links. And to me, like, I believe that there's a quote by Picasso that everyone's born an artist. The trouble is like trying to keep an artist as we grow up into an adult. And it's like we say how kids can be really mindful without realizing it's instinctive. I think creativity and mindfulness, creativity being whatever you want it to be, doesn't have to be painting. As Liz was saying, it can be music, it can be dance, it can be drama, but it's so actually ingrained in like humans, as is meditation, but we're not taught how to use it, or we're taught that art is only a specific thing that only specific people can do, which I think is a shame, really. So yeah, I work with young people and mental health, and one of the things I'm really thinking about is how like it's not just about the end piece, it is the process, just as meditation is about the process. And yeah, but I've just found this really interesting talk because it's kind of like cemented what I've been feeling, and now explore more. And I'd also be really interested in helping to run some art and meditation workshops as well.
That's brilliant to hear, Georgina. We have something in common, haven't we, really? Because we did the same course.
Yeah, I loved that course so much. It's a course that I was like, I genuinely feel like anyone could do this course, because it wasn't necessarily about art making, it was about like, what are you interested in? And like with the meditation practice, putting your focus onto one thing, whatever that one thing is, and seeing where it goes. I always said that anyone should do that course, and they don't do it anymore. Are you on mute, Veronica?
Oh, Veronica, you need to unmute.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's lovely to hear that, Georgina, because I think we had a similar starting point, even though you're at the beginning and I'm towards, you know, a different part of life. You know, that interactive arts, I chose it for the same reason, because of the openness of the creativity and your interest, you know, and seeing the connection was the same thing I saw and wanted to pursue. So it's lovely to hear that. And I'm glad. Are you in Manchester then?
Yes, I am.
Right. Okay. So lovely, lovely. It brings things around in full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah. I can send an email, but yeah, it's just been really nice to hear like the other side, like people coming from meditation and finding art, like I found art and then kind of got the other way, but I think it's a circle. They both inform each other.
Gosh, I think we've started something here. I do hope it carries on somehow or other, because I felt that there was such a lot of possibility there in you know, the interaction between meditation and creativity in various forms. So hopefully, go on.
I think, as you say, like sometimes you can't quite find the words to say it, because they're both a lot more than words that we use to describe things.
Yeah, you know, words. Yeah, we need imagery as much as words, if we can, to, you know, to further our
so many different senses, don't
we? Okay, how are we doing? I don't know who's waving their arms there. I think they're just stretching. Vasanti, yeah?
Just got a pattern which I wrote on my telephone. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't think we can see it. I can see your phone, but not the message. No. Can you tell us what it says, Basanti?
This is the dedication I wrote. I was telling that the.
Oh yes, I can see it now. You've moved it. Oh, the words on the page. Wow, it makes a circle. Yes. Yes.
Typing.
Yeah. Oh, very good. We can see it. Yes. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you showed us that. It just shows you what's possible without trying, without trying too hard. Lizzie, Elizabeth Ann. Hello there.
I just wanted to go back to the trust element, and it reminded me of Tai Chi. And I've been doing Tai Chi for quite a long time, but with like different sort of classes. But I think I finally come home recently to a really wonderful class, and the teacher uses some of the poetic language for the movements. Not all the time, but she slips it in and out. And Tai Chi is a little bit like you go towards the paper and you don't quite know what's going to come out. But if you allow yourself to just trust in flowing with that movement, and then added to it by this poetic language that's coming out towards you, which draws up images in your mind, and then that adds to the flow and the just the movement. And I'd never seen a connection between sort of creativity and kind of body work, Tai Chi work before, and I just wanted to add that really. And I missed the first part because I've been out, but I shall try and find it on on the website.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited. I want to have a go.
Well, it's good linking it with the Tai Chi, because sometimes some of the words they use, the image make you want to be like that, don't they?
Absolutely.
The image helps a lot.
Yeah, she used one, tigers' mouths, which I'd never heard. And have your arms relaxed either side of your legs, and you picture these tigers' mouths gently moving towards your legs of their own volition. And I thought, I've never heard that before. And there was a moment also in the kind of beauty of what she was saying and the kind of beauty of the movement, which I actually felt the heart just go, ooh, joy, a moment of real, ooh, which I imagine, putting your colours and your beauty on the paper. I saw some of somebody's work who'd been with you, and I just, wow, that is so gorgeous, and
yeah,
yes,
it is that trust, isn't it, Lizzie? Yeah, the trust and being that trust. And when I noticed, going to the beginning of my talk, when I started to notice when people had been around at Green Street for a few days, a kind of openness somehow, and a recognizing the beauty that they hadn't seen before. It seems to all go together, doesn't it? Sort of an open heart and a trusting.
I'm very much like Marjorie was saying, that I always think, I'm absolutely useless at art, can't do it, won't do it, no, it's not for me, sort of thing. But really, you just have to make that first move. I think somebody was saying, the Vitakka, you just make that first step, and maybe with your beautiful paper and your beautiful crayons that will, I use something really nice rather than a stubby little crayon or a,
and don't judge it either, because sometimes you can get excited and do it, and then it doesn't live up to your expectations, or it might, you don't know. Like, you have to be a bit spontaneous and let it be what it is, and not judge, the whole process. Very good. I think it
maybe
does.
like a meditation practice, I suppose. You might have these very dull practices, but you'll just keep plodding on. You're just going on, and then one day that that's very beautiful, and that's very still, and and maybe not judge it. That is perhaps judging
it's
it.
a creative act, isn't it? Actually.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So well done, you. Well done. I do.
It's at the end.
No, that's the beginning.
It would be a good point to end on, actually, unless there's someone who really wants to speak. I just can't see anyone at the moment. Is that Diana? I can see.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Because another way, I mean, as Liz said, the music is art. It's all part of art, you know, but also photography. It was interesting hearing people say this, because I hear this all the time when I run the groups at the hospital. Everybody always comes in and says, "Oh, but I can't do art." And as somebody else said, it's the process, it's not the product.
Yeah.
And to sort of approach it like I'm going to play and experiment with these materials without worrying about producing something and see what happens. But also the other thing is photography, because I mean, you took some nice photographs.
Well, they weren't mine, they were someone else's photos from the group, yeah. They were all other people, mostly other people's.
I mean, I love taking photos, and you know, get some beautiful shots. Or it's also, and that's mindfulness, if you like. It's just that moment of seeing when you're out, seeing something in a different way, or seeing the shapes, the forms, the way it goes together.
Yeah.
And I think there's saying something like a picture
That's 1,000 words, is it?
1,000 words.
Yes. I know, of course, yes, photography, yeah. It's perfect, yeah. It's what you...
meditation, yeah.
I think it's like capturing something you see. Sometimes you see something and it seems so amazing and it's so simple. I mean, one of the participants in the week, he saw tiny little flowers that you see all the time everywhere, but he said they were like mini suns, and it was actually surprising to hear him say that. But and I didn't have a photograph of one of them really to go with it, but it's, you know, that visual spotting and noticing something, and then with a camera you can get it better sometimes than any other way. Yeah, good to be reminded of that. Trying to sort there. Well, I think that's more than plenty, unless that somebody moved. Is that? I can't see who it is. Peter, did you want to speak there? Pete, is it Pete Bongo? Yeah? Can you unmute yourself, Peter? Pete? You need to unmute yourself if you want to speak. So I don't know really.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having difficulty with connection.
There you
go. I just wanted to say very briefly, I used to play a lot of music at one time. I was percussionist with a band, and because I think because of being very concentrated on what you're doing, also playing some ancient African rhythms, it sort of takes all your bodily functions and control and concentration up, and then it frees your mind to do all sorts of wonderful things, which happen.
Wow.
Which, you know, you can resolve problems, especially thinking with regard to Diana with mental health. If you can concentrate on something so deeply, then your mind is free to resolve lots of stuff, and that is like what you're saying, you know, connection between meditation and art. The concentration of the art is freeing your mind, and then as you say, just a husk is what's left. It's not a process. Doesn't really matter about the art. Is the process of resolving stuff in your head sometimes. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
A brilliant talk.
Oh, thank you. And it shows it's not just art, it's creative is music as well, you know, and how the getting absorbed in the whole performance of it. Okay. Well, I think that's more than plenty. And so thanks, everyone. I'm glad I've done it now. It's something I've been thinking about for such a long time. And as some of you know, I think some of these sessions that I did go back years now. And I don't know, I saw Marina amongst you there. She made a lovely clay Buddha. I wonder if she remembers that. Do you remember, Marina, your clay Buddha? And there was only 3 people on the course. I think we were there for a week. You see, they were too afraid to come, but Marina came. Anyway, there's going to be a talk next week by Valerie. I think she's called it Divine Living. living divinely, living divinely, the Brahma Viharas. So that's next week, and I think the week after that is Rob, and then there's a whole new program through. So hope to see you all again next week, and bye for now. Okay, bye bye. Bye. Lovely to see everyone.